Have you ever had one of those days or one of those thoughts where you're like, fuck, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, this is shit. Like, get me out of here. Studies are showing that so many of us actually have those thoughts. It is actually a very normal part of the human experience to go, fuck. And when I was 12, I had that experience. And I am a very determined little girl. So I tried 3 times to make my great escape. And the 3rd time I ended up in hospital. And I remember what this nurse said to me. He said, well, how can you do this to your parents? I was like, well, shit, he's got a point. My parents are really nice people. I cannot do this to them. So that news hit me like a ton of bricks. It felt like a life sentence. And so I realized at that point I'd have to do something to start to shift my mindset. And fast forward 20 years, and Nick has labeled me as productive, efficient, and positive. And I am those things. So, how did I go from being a sad, neurotic little girl to someone who can be called productive, efficient, and positive? Guess what, guys? I've got it for you in 3 easy steps. I have the keys to the kingdom of happiness. Good, right? I don't. Kingdom. No one has the keys. That neurotic little girl, she still very much lives inside me. So does this one. So does the part of me that is also productive, efficient, and positive. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. How you can live, how parts of yourself can co-inhabit your mind more easily, how you can have better conversations with yourself to improve the way that you show up in the world. So, the first little part of this story started off with mini me. So you guys all have a mini you. So for the sake of this, we're going to call this our inner child, right? So here is a little analogy about the way things work when we come out of the womb. So I want you guys to pretend with me. You're a little child and you come out of your womb and you're holding a tiny, tiny map, right? Now, all of our maps are different based on our biology. My map is pretty colorful. It's a little bit crazy because that's how I was born. We're all wired differently. So there's little you and you got your map and you're entering the world, and then you look up at the people who take care of you and you go, Mommy, what makes you love me? And Mommy's like, when you're a good girl, when you sit there quietly. And you go, oh, well, that's good. I'm going to put that on my map. Mommy likes it when I sit there quietly like a good girl. Excellent. Daddy, why do you love me? Oh, Daddy likes it when I'm a little bit crazy. Cool. Daddy likes it when I'm loud and colorful. Put that on the map. Daddy likes it when I'm loud and colorful. Great. Okay, so you're moving. Okay. And then you have these experiences like you touch a hot stove, get burnt, and you write down, don't touch hot shit. Now, when it comes to something like hot stove, we're all having a very similar experience. On the most part, we've all gone, don't touch the hot stove again. But with our parents, it's different. And then we enter school and it's even more different. So we have experiences like putting our hand up for the first time. We put our little hands up and we go, and the teacher, she might do one of 2 things. She might go, bravo, what an excellent point that you've made. And you go, oh my God, that feels great. Stand up, say stuff, it's brilliant, dopamine, yeah, right? Or something else might have happened. Put your little hand up and something went wrong. And you felt so ashamed. And shame for a human feels like pain. We are so social that when we feel shame, we experience it as actual pain. So you've gone, oh my God, never, ever put your hand up again. Don't do it. That is your map. And that is how you're starting to create your map of meaning of the world. Now, the problem with all of this is when we move into adulthood, often the directions that were written down by the little parts of ourselves are still the things that are guiding us. Oftentimes, if you're an adult that's having trouble standing up for themselves at work, putting their hand up, making a suggestion, part of that problem can be traced back to what you experienced as a little version of yourself. And that is why you want to start a conversation. Because on the surface, our adult mind is very good at making up reasons why we don't put our hand up. We're like, well, the meeting was too busy. My boss is a dick. He's not going to listen anyway. Might be any number of things that you tell yourself to intellectualize why you don't want to put your hand up. But what you want to do is you've got to peel the layers back. You've got to ask yourself, like, what is the emotion underpinning this action? What happened to the little part of myself that's led them to write this thing down or this description on the map that I'm moving with? So that's the first part. We've got our inner child, this little girl. Now, I want to introduce you to some other characters. Now, these are the characters in my head. They might not be the characters in your head, but I'll run you through them. So you have inner child, a detective, a fortune teller, a judge, and a nurturer. So I want to tell you a story with these two. So this is a detective and a fortune teller. And what I'd like you to do is, I want you to try and think, as I'm telling you this story, who is talking about what? Like, whose voice is who? Now, it's probably going to be a little bit obvious, but bear with me. All right, so I started dating recently. And I haven't done this before, like the traditional, well, not the traditional going online way, but the modern going online way. So I haven't done this before. And I'd heard this thing that people say about, don't get carried away. Don't get too carried away. You know, you don't want to fall in love with the person after a couple of dates. And I was like, well, that's weird. How would someone do that? And so I went on 2 dates with this guy, and I noticed something started to happen. My imagination started coming up with these stories, right? And one of them was us going to the Fitzroy markets and buying a shabby chic lamp. Another one was him sitting with my dad on the balcony in Brisbane discussing architecture. How nice. The third, my personal favorite, was me and him looking at swatches together for the new Archleys product. Oh, what a gay time we had. Ha 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 ha. It's brilliant. And I was like, okay, brain, come on, you're making shit up. But you're doing that thing where you start going too far that people warn you not to do. So I was like, all right, well, should stop. Or I could really lean into this. Like, how far can this go? So I sat with my journal and I went, all right, let's make some shit up. And so I wrote all of these great things we were going to do together, about the life we were going to have together, blah, 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 blah. Now, you should know this about your brain. When you make up experiences that it likes, it is releasing dopamine. So you can literally get high off telling yourself about nonsensical events and things that you want to have happen in the future. Your brain believes the events, right? So I've gone through this process and I'm like, well, that wasn't that bad. That was kind of fun. I enjoyed thinking about all these nice things. And then I think it was that night or the next day, I got this text and it was like, well, I'm going away for the weekend. And I was like, oh shit, what does that mean? What do I do with that? And so I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to start looking through the text messages. I'm like, right, well, what do I have here? Okay, there's the time between the texts, I think it's increasing. That's not a good sign. That's not a good sign. I'm like, well, I feel like he's not as interested. The questions he's asking me, have they been changing? And I did other things. I checked his Instagram, of which I'm not a follower. I went online, I Googled his name. Just looking for something to give me more information about what the hell was happening. Now, you're probably wondering, like, at this point, what is going on internally? And I happened to be listening to a podcast at the same time as this kind of internal chaos was unfolding. And this podcast was about scarcity. Scarcity is something that's very biologically built into us. It's something that's really instinctually felt. So what is happening in this situation and why I'm starting to get neurotic and spiral out of control is the fortune teller in my brain has told me this story about how this person is going to solve all of my problems and create this magnificent life for me. This is what's happened. So now my brain's like, holy shit, that sounds really good. That felt really good thinking about that. Well, fuck, that's a really scarce resource because this guy's like a king. We need to worry about this. This is very now important to us. So the little detective part of your brain is like, okay, shit. All right, well, I'm on it. I'm gonna gather the information. So he starts gathering the information that you have, the text message, the last login on LinkedIn, and all of that kind of stuff. So he's gathering that around frantically. And all the while, your brain is starting to go, oh my God, this feels like a nightmare. And you're just getting into anxiety because there's an important thing. You're about to lose it. You're prophesizing about what's going to happen and your detective's spiraling out of control. And you're just desperately trying to cling on to things. And so the process for unpicking and unpacking all of this kind of internal chaotic nonsense is through journaling. Because when you're spiraling out of control, what you want to do is you need to ground yourself back in a more objective version of reality. So you want to call the voices to the table. So let's talk to the detective. What are the facts of the situation? And actually, before I say this, I just want to preface this. If you're sitting here going, God, lady, like, I don't have this problem. I'm not a fucking lunatic. Try and picture for a second this problem in something that relates to you. Picture like, I don't know, a job where you were desperately kind of like, you were really hinged on the idea of getting this particular position and you had built an idea in your mind about what the future in that role would look like for you. Work with something that you kind of fantasized about. Sorry, back to the thing. Detective, come to the table. Come to the table, give me all of the evidence. And then you have to sit there and you have to write this. Well, I have the text messages. I have the space between the text messages. It feels suspicious, I don't know. He logged on to LinkedIn, so I know he's online, which is pretty, and it goes on like this. Now, honestly, guys, the process of doing this feels ridiculous. You sit there and you're like, oh God, like how embarrassing that this is what I'm thinking with. But that's the point. The point is to take the punch out of the narrative, you have to ground it in what's realistic. Because when your mind thinks that it has a point to make by stringing together random pieces of information, it can get hinged on those ideas. And if it's being stimulated by a feeling of scarcity, it can get obsessive. So when you do find your mind doing that whole problem solving thing, be like, come to the table. What the hell are we working with? Is it nothing? So the last thing I wanted to add to that too is this is what my mind looks like when it's getting neurotic and it's humming and hawing between these random bits of text and information that I've been giving it. But I want to just take a second out so that we can be a little bit empathetic for our detectives. My detective is actually a really good detective. When I'm in a meeting with 10 people, my detective can see body language in all different places. It can ask really good questions and it can synthesize a lot of information. There is a quote on my website that says, I had a 30-minute meeting with Jess and then she made a website. Why? Because my detective was on fire in that moment. And if you guys have got an intuitive, emotional detective, yours likely is on fire in those human circumstances too. The reason our detectives become unhinged is because if you're an emotional person and you rely heavily on body language, when you are stuck with a few text messages to skim through, a login date, and this other just really surface level basic information that you can get on the internet, it's really difficult for your brain because it's trying to do what it wants to do. It wants to synthesize and pull things together, just like it would do in the animal kingdom. But it's hard. Like in a digital realm, technology tricks us. So you want to be careful. Like if you're getting email anxiety or you're stressing out about response times and what people are thinking and feeling behind those digital doors, just remind yourself your brain is trying really hard to make sense out of something that is inherently not human. Forgive your little detective dude. He's trying his best. All right, so next person. Now we have the fortune teller. So you want to ask the fortune teller part of yourself, all right, what the hell are you forecasting? And don't buy into the thing of, oh, you know, I'm just being silly. No. Ask her, like, what are the stories that you've made up? For example, if it's something to do with work, maybe a tiny little part of you was kind of excited to update your Facebook. Just a little part. Maybe you're excited to tell your parents because you want their approval. Like, what are the things that your fortune teller has actually been telling you? So in my case, we had the lamp, the meeting with Dad on the balcony in Brisbane, and the color swatches. All right, so you write down these scenarios. And then you ask yourself, what is the value that's underpinning these things? Number one, the lamp. I'm 32. I just want a nest at some point. So that's what I'm craving. My fortune teller is telling me a story about the fact that you're excited to move in with someone. You want a house to decorate. The next one, having a chat with my dad. Well, my last partner was in Germany. So this is my fortune teller getting excited about the idea of anchoring a relationship in Melbourne, somewhere local. She's excited about that. And then the third one, the color swatches. This is me getting excited about the idea of co-creation, right? I love making things with other people. So when you break down the values of the things that you're craving, you can start to ask yourself, how else can I satisfy these needs? If I choose not to hinge all of these needs on this person, given that it was all imaginary, how else can I satisfy them? And like right now, I'm super excited. I'm moving in with a friend. My dad's actually here from Brisbane. And yeah, I've been working on a product with a new person. So many of those needs have gotten met, but you can't find out what the needs are until you're willing to unpick and unpack some of the strange stuff your imagination throws at you. Because there's messages in the madness. You just have to be willing to sit with them and unpick the meaning behind them. All right, end of that story. So now I want to tell you about another voice. Now, if you're a creative type, you probably struggle to bring this one in. And this is the voice of the nurturer. The voice of the nurturer is something like a mother or a good friend. And I have attached the voice of a nurturer to a practice I call granular gratitude. And the reason I've attached it to this practice is because I have bought gratitude journals before and I have struggled with them. There is a gratitude journal where you write down 3 things that you're grateful for. And I bought this and I did it for a couple of days. But then 2 things happened. One was I ran out of stuff to write because every day I was like, I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful that I have running water. So I ran out of things to write. And then I also started to feel shame. Because I was like, well, Jesus, like you're not starving in Africa. Why are you not happier? What's up with you? And so I came up with this process called granular gratitude. And the idea is you want to create a habit of gratitude focused on small moments in the day. Granular moments, right? So you're looking around in the day for tiny little things that you can be grateful for. And then each night you write 3 points of gratitude: external, internal, and future. External is something that happened that was good, like happened to you that was good in the world. So it could be that your friend did something generous for you. It could be like a sunset that you saw. It could be something nice that you ate. You sit there and you really think and feel and connect into that moment. That was nice. And then the next one is internal. Now, internal is the one, guys, I think we all struggle the most with. Internal is, what did I do that I can give myself credit for? Now, it doesn't need to be amazing. It could be something small. Like if you showed up for a friend and a conversation and you were really focused and listening, it could be that You had breakfast with your son and he was giggling and laughing and you love the way that you were mothering him or parenting him. It can be anything that you like, but the point is it's got to be small little steps. And then the last one is future. So future is, what can I be grateful for tomorrow? What can I look forward to when I wake up in the morning? Now, I'll tell you why that works. Before you go to sleep, so when you go to sleep, your mind is encoding information. So all of the stuff that you learn during the day, it gets encoded at night. So if you take the time to have this conversation with yourself before you go to bed, you're ending the day on a positive note. And I make no guarantee, but actually priming your subconscious mind with this gratitude practice makes it more likely for you to encode this feeling, this energy of positivity on your sleeping mind. And I do this, and when I wake up, honestly, oftentimes my future thing that I'm looking forward to, when I wake up, it's top of mind. And it's nice, right? Because sometimes you wake up angsty and pissed off, and all that's still there. It's all still there. But there's another little voice. It's like, and remember, you're having lunch with blah, blah, blah. You're excited to do blah, blah, blah. It's coaxing that little voice, and it's coaxing that little voice out of you, and it's creating the habit of tuning in and checking in with that part of yourself. So I'm really excited because that practice is something that I'm about to put into a new journal. So it's a journal that I'm making with a girl called Sherelle Grant, who is awesome. She's a fitness coach, an entrepreneur herself. So this is going to be the brand that we're creating, Habitual Self. That is not the real journal. That is an Archlee's journal, but it's coming. And I want to mention this because there's a really important part that underpins all of what I'm talking about. We're talking today about mind, and Sherelle is a fitness coach. So she does a lot around still mindset, but also body. So why do we need to think about mind and body together? Well, because the quality of our mind, because the quality of our body is going to be directly impacted, is going to directly impact the quality of our mind. This sounds silly, but you already are dealing with so much internal chaos. When you don't take care of your body, the little voices inside you really don't have a fighting chance. If every part of you is coming to work hungover, upset, drunk, if you are the kind of person like me who is anxious, that stuff has a massive impact. So I wanted to piece this with the mothering part, because part of taking care of yourself is actually taking care of your physical health. I've done both things. Recently, I've been on a huge health kick where I've really been cutting back on everything. I've also swung the other way. I used to live in Berlin. But honestly, I can tell you guys, living this kind of cleaner life, it might feel boring or it might sound boring, but it's actually not. What happens is when you take care of your mind and you read, write, and do all that good stuff, you start to feel your brain leveling up. Give it time and you'll notice the sharpness. It's not like the muscle at the gym. Unfortunately, we can't see that our brain is getting supercharged, but it does happen. So do take care of yourself because the rewards are there. Give it a little bit of time and you'll feel it. All right, one more character, guys. This guy says, this is your judge. My judge is brutal. So your judge, this is the part of yourself that says you are right and they are wrong. This is the part of you that likes to argue. This is the part of you that has a very linear way of looking at stuff. All right. Now, a lot of what the judge uses to orientate with is, again, it's that map that you have from when you're a little kid. But what we want to do with our judges is we want to start questioning everything. So question things. So question builds curiosity, and question asks the judge to look at things from different angles. So a story I have is when I was younger, I was I was a very angsty little girl. I was sad, I was angsty, I was everything. And I kept snapping at people. And I hated this behavior in myself because, I didn't like it. I didn't want to snap at people. I wanted to start trying to really ground myself. So I started asking myself different questions. And the first question I wrote down was, in what way was my behavior frustrating? Now, let me tell you, there are so many ways in which my behavior is frustrating. But that first question did the job. It pulled me out of the situation and made me start looking at things from different angles. Because when we're pissed off or when we're in an emotional state, our thoughts tend to loop. They can feel thick. Like when you've had an argument with someone, you kind of sit in this space of, he's right, I'm wrong, blah, 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 blah. And the problem is the argument's ended, but it's still going on in your head. So you want to create tools to actually diffuse those arguments so that you can expand the perspective from which you're considering things and take the punch out of that looping narrative. So I came up with this question: in what way was my behavior frustrating? And then I came up with others. Like I started asking myself at the end of disagreements, what were the external stresses? What are the things that are stressing them out? What are the things that are stressing me out? I came up with other ones, like what is my goal for this relationship ultimately? Like what do I actually want out of being with this person? And again, the process of pulling through these questions actually expands your mental map of consideration. So you're looking at things more broadly. And I'm telling you this, guys, because like I have decks of cards, but you guys can make your own decks too. Like these are the questions that spoke to me and these are the questions that I chose to use, but you guys can start to unpick and unhinge the narratives inside of you. Like for me, the other ones that I wanted to use was mistakes. Like it's so important, guys, for you not to label your actions as a mistake, a failure, something bad. Whenever there's a little part of you that goes to label a situation with that kind of language, get your judge, like get out questions and start questioning what your judge is saying. Ask yourself, like, well, what do I know now that I didn't know then? Who else was involved? Who else influenced the situation? What are the lessons that I can take from this? Ask questions to diffuse your narrative and extend your perspective. So yeah, this little deck is probably the thing that's closest to my heart because it's based around CBT. But like I said, this is a practice that you guys can do yourselves and really rewrite the narrative and expand the map from which you're considering things. So this is Reframe. I'm not going to go into it too deeply, but Reframe has the categories of disagreements, hindsight, transitions, and decisions. And to me, these were all scenarios where I wanted to anchor and expand the thoughts that I was using to consider things with. The last little piece I want to give you guys is I've been talking a lot about expanding maps and talking about why it's advantageous to broaden your perspective and see things differently. So I want to talk quickly about neuroplasticity. So your brain has the ability to change, shape, and grow. When I was younger, we were told that our brain was stagnant. At a particular age, the cells just slowly started to disintegrate. But what we now know is that, our brains can shape and grow. So if you have one thought, one train of mind from which you consider things, think about, like, again, with the map, you're used to walking down that trail. It's the same old path that you keep on walking. If you want to change that map and you want to reshape your mind, you have to take yourself off the trail that you're used to using. And this is why questions are key. When you ask yourself questions, you're asking your mind to consider things differently. You're expanding the reach that your map has. And like the first time you go off the trail, it hurts, right? You get stuck with sticks and your leg gets scratched. And you're like, oh, fuck, this is shit. But the more times you do it, the more times those changes and those new directions start to wire into your neuroplasticity. So like for me now, I think with so many questions, and I love this. Like if you practice asking yourself questions, you'll come into situations with so much more curiosity. So much more. And then my last thing is like curiosity, it breeds empathy. Nothing, or so often nothing, is as it seems. Like when we look at people who have traits that feel kind of narcissistic, like know that those people inside of them have scared, upset little children that are desperately trying to be seen and heard. Often the people who are the loudest and the most cocky have the scaredest little boys and girls. So when you start questioning your judge and you start questioning the things that you take at face value, you can actually start to expand the lens from which you see things. So if you ask these questions of yourself, you can start to tune in and naturally start to ask these questions about everyone else. Like for example, guys, like if you do this work, the next time you have a friend who's sitting there and she's been on 2 dates with a guy and she's telling you that she's heartbroken and she's really upset, rather than sitting there going, oh fuck, what an idiot. Do I have to sit through this? No, don't do that. Ask her, like, what is it that you're imagining? Like, is there something that you're excited about, like, happening with this guy? Like, what does that thing look like? Same with the detective. If you have a mate and he's talking about this new great business venture and you're sitting there going, bro, shit ain't gonna work. Don't sit there judging him. Ask him something like, what is the information that you're using to make this decision with? Like, try and tune in to the part of him that might be telling him a tale and ask him to get objective and create clarity around what that part of him has in terms of its internal narrative. And then last one too, like, remember guys, like, there is a tiny little person inside all of us who's generally just desperate to be seen and heard. So just having empathy for the way that people show up. Like, when people are pissed off at you, it's often that they're pissed off at themselves. So yeah, I hope something out of this resonated. I really hope that you guys do, kind of lean into this idea of having a conversation with yourself. If you want to ask me anything about journaling, feel free to reach out. I guess that's it. I don't have a good way to wrap this up. Thank you for listening.